Oh, no, this is my very.
Yes. That's why
Please be upstanding. Tony Dickey, accompanied by the deputy mayor and the chief executive.
There we go. Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the council. I'd like to welcome all members of the council and also members of the public. Hands up, members of the public. Hello. Yeah, how about that? How about that? Thank you. Thank you. I want a good clean meeting. Yeah, no punching below the belt, no eyes gouging, any of that stuff. Okay, we are not Tyson Fury. Right, good to see the member of the public here, but also people that might be watching from home, because this is being broadcast, and we've got Mr. Dale here as well. So he'll be filming the meeting this evening for Brentford Today and TV, local community news and television station. And Mr. Dale has been asked to ensure that his filming is only members and officers and not the only member of the public sitting in the public area. And in addition to this, as I said, this has been live streamed on the internet. That's if we've got the connection from the 6th floor here, but I think we have. And all members have an agenda for tonight? Yes, you got your little wee tablets. Are they working? Okay. All right. Okay. And may I remind all members that all debate that be done through the mayor, that's me, and I wish to see fairness and courtesy in discussions, no interruptions or talking during the contributions of others. Do as I say, not do as I do. The budget setting meeting is probably, well, apart from me being mayor, is probably the most important meeting of the year. It's one that we've got a bit to get through tonight. Everyone got their supplementary papers as well in front of them. Okay, lovely. Okay, and finally, may I ask all members to avoid repetition, keep to the point during debate. So yeah, all right with that? Happy? Yeah, you've done it before anyway. Agenda item 1, any apologies for absence and also declarations of interest. Any apologies for absence first?
Hinakiani.
Hinakiani, okay.
Patrick.
Who? You're here?
Puneet.
Puneet Garawal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, apologies for lateness.
Patrick Barr, he won't be here.
Patrick Barr, is he still unwell?
Yes,
wish him all the best for us.
Thank you.
From us. Thank you very much. Right. Any declarations of interest or declare that you're or council taxpayers, you know, or are you? I mean, that is the thing. Anybody not up to date with their council tax? As if you'd admit it. Okay, you can't really participate if you're not. Okay, thank you very much. Have we checked that, Director of Finance? Everybody up to date, are they? Yeah. Okay. Are you up to date? Okay. All right. Just checking. Just checking. And thank you. Agenda item 2. We now come to announcements. Any announcements from any members of the cabinet? Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, just an update on the validated results for GCSE and A levels last year. Overall performance at GCSEs continued to be strong, but this is for 2019, but has dropped slightly compared to 2018. Hounslow continues to outperform national averages, as well as being in line with or better than London averages. Performance on Progress 8, which is the measure of progress between Year 7 and Year 11, remains very strong and better than London, as well as above national averages. At A-level, performance on 2 of the measures has increased, but sadly on the other 2 have slightly decreased from 2018. The increase is in the percentage of students achieving at least 2 A-levels. Moves performance on this measure both above London and national, but Hounslow students achieve some A-levels. In Hounslow, more students achieve some A-level success, but they achieve fewer grades at A star, A and B. So that's where our slightly decreased performance is. But overall, both at GCSE and A-level, a very good picture.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good. Next item. Item 3. Minutes, pages 1 to 17. Any glaring errors? Okay. Anyone want to move the minutes? Yeah, moved and agreed. Okay, thank you very much. Good. Yeah, all right. Matters arising. How about that? Any? Councillor Mushiso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say thank you so much for accommodating my father here last time we had a meeting. You made him feel very welcome, and he's got nothing but positive things to say about you. Yes, and he even mentioned Councillor Karen as well in his yes, but I won't go too far on that one. But on just want to say that I believe Councillor Bruce has written some letters to head teachers, as was suggested at the Borough Council meeting, and I want to thank him publicly for that, and look forward to seeing fully what was written. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That was about relationship education, was it? Okay, thank you. That's for viewers who were not aware. Thank you very much. Any more matters arising? Okay, do we approve the minutes? Do we? Okay, thank you very much. Item 4. Does anybody have any petitions to present tonight from their constituents? Okay, none yet. All right, good. Okay. And there are none to report on, apart from those mentioned in the papers, but no one to present at the moment. Okay, thank you very much. Right, here we go. Item 5. We have the budget report for 2020-2021. Just want to check, does everybody have the supplementary agenda for tonight, along with which includes the amendments from the minority party? Has everyone got that? They've got access to it. Okay, otherwise, like me, you won't know what's going on. Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose a motion without notice in the Constitution 11 para P to suspend a particular council procedure rule. We would like in this group to use the 10 minutes usually taken by the leader to open the debate from our point of view, our side. We would like that to be taken by Councillor McGregor. So I would like to put that motion to the vote as a motion without notice.
Okay, all right. Is that seconded by anyone? Seconded by Councillor McGregor and Councillor Gill. Okay. Can I just explain this to people? The protocol is that we it's normally 5 minutes, 5 minute speeches for in debate. At budget time, it's the leaders of the council, the leader of the council, the majority group, the leader of the minority group, each are entitled to 10 minutes to speak, and that's usually a suspension of the standing order there for the 5 minutes. Can I put it to so it's been proposed and it's been moved to via the permission to Councillor McGregor from Councillor Biddulph.
If I could help you, Mr. Mayor, we're happy to accept that.
Blimey. Okay, unity. Okay, yeah, broken out. Oh, take a picture. Thank you very much. May I just remind people that it's only once that they can speak for 10 minutes. We don't want them doing it all. We don't want to do it every debate, every amendment. Let's put it that way. So keep your powder dry if you wish to do it another time. We do have 3 amendments on your paper. You might have 4 amendments. Is there 4 amendments on the paper or 3? I'm looking. There are 3. Okay, right. Okay, so we have 3 amendments, and each amendment's got to be voted on separately. The substantive amendment has to be voted on separately, and because it is a finance discussion, it's a recorded vote as required by law. Okay, and the chief executive will choreograph that. Okay, right. So here we go. Item 5. You've got that on page 23 to 194 of the agenda, and that's about it, really. We'll pass it over to Councillor Rajawat to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I formally move the reference back from the Cabinet to Council for agreement on the budget. And in doing so, I'll make some comments and try and stick to my 5 minutes. So with our T21 budget, we aim to continue to provide services to our most vulnerable service users, continue to invest in our priority areas, continue to provide value for money to our council taxpayers and business ratepayers, continue to provide a fair, inclusive, and socially aware set of services to all of our stakeholders. This budget is designed not only to build on our successes of recent years in terms of providing quality, value for money services to our residents, but also seeks to provide us with a firm basis upon which we can deliver our new corporate plan through the remainder of our term in office. To date, we have rebased our budgets, prepared a climate action plan, and witnessed 613 new affordable homes made available in the borough so far this year alone. And as a consequence of that, built one single new civic centre at the heart of our community, where I stand today to present this budget. As always, our budget report is split into its key constituent parts. We continue to reduce our costs through more efficient ways of working, better procurement, prioritising local suppliers, and through transforming our structures and departments so they are better able to meet the challenges ahead. Nowhere is this better evidence than our One Hounslow programme, which over months and years will transform our services, delivering better standards of service at a cost markedly below what we have previously been able to achieve, through key strands of digitisation, customer service, data and bureaucracy reduction, each focused with our service users at the heart of our redesign of outcomes. However, Cabinet are very aware that we do have material financial challenges. During the year, we have rebased our budgets, which has brought the majority of our overspending departments back into balance. This gives us a solid platform upon which I can build this budget. And I thank colleague cabinet leads for their engagement in that process. However, we do still have some pressures still. We don't hide from that. As we know, our funding has reduced significantly over the past decade, yet our demand continues to grow. Work I have undertaken alongside the leader and cabinet lead members have devised a strategy to manage these overspends despite government legislation changes and driven demand increases in housing and special educational needs. We are, however, determined to ensure that we direct our services, our resources to where they are needed most, and those areas deliver value for money. As successive Prime Ministers inform Parliament that austerity is over, our research shows that each and every London borough is likely to recommend a rise to council tax in order to keep essential services funded. Austerity is not over in Hounslow, and this budget produced a 14 million budget funding gap that we have through corporate financing, council tax rise proposals, and the savings reported to the 2019 MTFS report to council. However, we do not choose to recommend a tax rise lightly. Hounslow residents have become used to low tax over a number of years, and we have continued to retain one of the most generous council tax localisation schemes in the country to ensure we protect the most vulnerable. This is further evidenced by our continued support for our local welfare support provision, where again, government funding has ceased, and we in Hounslow have a choice to either fund ourselves or allow residents to suffer, in addition to our commitments to London Living Wage. We need the council tax income in order to ensure our financial sustainability in the midterm, and indeed, government assumptions about our spending power make assumptions about tax rises we will make. The council also continues to fund an ambitious capital programme, a programme aligned to corporate priorities and regenerating our town centres. It's not easy. Although tight on revenue funding, Hounslow is able to invest through one-off courses of income. That means that we can continue our house building programme, invest in our trading companies, and invest in our town centres in Hounslow, Feltham and Brentford, alongside public space in Feltham, Heston and Chiswick. It's no secret that the council has been challenged in delivering its capital programme in recent years, given the sheer scale of its ambition, but a refreshed approach to capital led by myself and the leader will ensure that we replicate in 2021 some quite excellent projects that we have delivered previously, such as this very building. As always, our budget report updates council on our plans for the housing revenue account and dedicated schools grant. The HRA shows a planned surplus for 2021, which will be made available for investment in the HRA refreshed business plan, which is due at Cabinet in the spring. The DSG shows a planned deficit as the government grant to fulfil our statutory high needs provision is simply inadequate. Our officers continue to work with DfE and CIPFA to mitigate the impact of DSG shortfalls falling on the general fund, but this is a national problem where the DfE must take ownership. Our budget report contains, as always, our Treasury management strategy, which seeks to continue its well-regarded activity in managing our council's internal and external cash flows. The lifting of the government cap on borrowing for housing schemes enable us to develop sites within Hounslow for urgently needed accommodation for residents. This will mean our surplus balances for investment reduce over time. But this council remains committed to delivering on its pledges, and we will use our funds wisely.
Okay. Time's up, but is that right?
I commend it to the council.
There you go.
There you go.
How about that? Thank you very much. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor, and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Now we move on to the first amendment. No, the first proposed amendment. And I'll invite Councillor McGregor to, as proposer, to speak, to introduce this amendment. Is that okay, Councillor McGregor? Ready?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Off you go.
Very kind of you. And can I just say thank you to Councillor Curran for giving me the opportunity later to give a 10-minute presentation on the full budget. This, I presume, will be a 5-minute speech for the amendment. The amendment is very important because what we're looking at here is Appendix B, which are the fees and charges. And if you've assessed the budget carefully, you will have seen that fees and charges in the future will be totaling about 48 million. That's a lot of money. but they're going up by about 5 million in one go. Now, the reason I've raised this amendment is because every year, over the years, we tend to allow the fees and charges to be part of a framework of reference, and we hardly ever call them into question. And I've checked very carefully about what scrutiny has done over fees and charges, and it's very limited over that period of time. So it's time we brought fees and charges back into the center of what we do here in the budget debate. Yeah, it's important we do that. Now, the issue with charges is not that we're against charges or against a particular level. It's just that we may, in our fees and charges regime, not be charging enough. We may not be charging enough. On the other hand, of course, most people will say, well, you're a council, you can afford it, you've got your money. Well, Councillor Wadsworth just told us that's not true. He's got no money. Where have I heard that before? But there we are. We need to look at this fees and charges with great care and attention. If you look at the amendment schedule, you'll see that we came up with something of the order of 150 different elements. And these are charges which we looked at. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with the charge, but we just need to know what it means. What's a full cost? When was the last time it was market tested? When it's discretionary, is that determined by an officer, or is it mandated to a councillor, perhaps a member of the cabinet? And if it's mandated to a councillor, what information do we get about the nature of that decision? So we are looking here at a rather magical area where we have a huge amount of value coming out of this area, but as councillors and as the council ourselves, we seem to know not a great deal about the mechanisms that support what we do in fees and charges. So the purpose of the amendment is not to put a spanner in the works in any way at all, but to try and give ourselves some time to consider some of the key charges which we have. Some of the new charges, for example. Now, we have heard over the last year and a half of how important health is to our population and how we want them to all go cycling. Well, that's jolly good. Well done. But we're also now about to charge people for performing athletics on common land. We're talking about parks and open spaces. We're about to charge people for giving opportunities for training. We're about to charge people for running on grass tracks where we had no previous charge. Well, if you're honest about public healthy activity, then this, of course, is deranged. It is not actually doing anything other than taxing public healthy activity. So we have a range of charges in this area. Going on, we have some discretionary charges and we have some rather large agency charges. We're talking £30,000 when it comes to adoption. Now, we've had this charge before, but it's never been questioned. And there's no reason why it should have been questioned. I'm not saying it's a bad charge, but it's a lot of money. And I want to know, how many times do we acquire that fee? Do we get it once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year? How often is the fee actually an incident in our general fund? We need to know this. So this is not a party political issue. I can assure you, we're not aiming at Councillor Wadsworth and saying you've got a rubbish budget. That's not the case. We're saying in this amendment, we are showing that we need to have more daylight shone onto this matter. And that's why we put the amendment forward. Now, let me repeat what the amendment effectively says. It says, let's have a 90-day moratorium on these charges. If they already exist, keep them going at the current rate. If they're new, let's have the full statement of cost and cost structure. And if necessary, let's go for a market test. The last time we market tested fees and charges, as far as I can find out from scrutiny and as far as I can find out from any information I've been able to dig out, was the fees and charges schedule of 2008, 2009. And I won't say any more than that. I'll just say that's when it was last done, according to what I'd be able to find. And that is fair enough, except things have moved on. And things have moved on incredibly in terms of leisure, and they've moved on incredibly in terms of healthcare and so forth. So, Mr. Mayor, I put it to the council that we should look at this with great care. I'm willing to listen to what people have to say. And I know that I'll be well supported by my colleagues because we've had a long discussion about this. So, Mr. Mayor, may I then propose the motion formally? Thank you very much.
Not bad. You only ran over a couple of seconds. Councillor Biddle, seconding.
I second that and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. I was going to ask Councillor Rajawat if he's prepared to accept the proposed amendment. Councillor Curran, you seconded it?
Yeah, no,
And he's back.
I can't accept the amendment, and there's some reasons for that. It's disappointing to hear that our colleagues on the other side here have not used the scrutiny process more if they were concerned about fees and charges. But more importantly, and we'll talk about this when we get to the main motion, is that I really did expect to see an alternative budget, and we've not seen that today. We've some vague amendments around fees and charges. You know, these are not new fees and charges. They've been around since the council was first formed. They've been around since the council was formed, and they're an annual event. So it's not as if it's new, and they've had plenty of time to talk to the chair of scrutiny about how they might do a piece of work either within a subcommittee or in the main committee around fees and charges. So I think it's a poor show, really. But what's even worse poor show is not having an alternative budget. We're just picking up on one point with regard to the charging for people using our parks and recreation grounds. If you hire a rugby pitch or a soccer pitch or a cricket pitch, you pay for it. You pay for it, and they're covered in the fees and charges, and everyone knows that. If you're running a private enterprise in one of our parks, or whether it's a boot camp around gym activities, whether you're a private school and you're using our parks as part of the service you charge to the parents for that private school, I think it's quite right that they pay for it. Everyone else pays. Why should people who are making money using our parks not pay for that privilege? We're happy to do that, and we'll support more people taking exercise. And it's absolutely right that we encourage people to do that. But there is a cost to it. If you go to a gym, you have to pay, whether it's a private gym or a council gym. So anyone that uses our parks and is charging other people to use the parks, they should pay for it. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's market forces after all. So we won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? We've got Councillor Mashiso, and then Councillor Gill, and then Councillor Khalid Malik. And then Councillor Biddle.
Mr. Mayor, just a brief one from me on this one. It seems to me, I'm not sure if you've been recording or the interventions that Councillor Curran has been making, which is his inability to read the room. And I think in this occasion is his inability to read our amendments. And what this what this amendment is actually showing is that what Councillor Curran is using here is the idea that overview and scrutiny should be the vehicle to validate his position. It is not a vehicle validation. Scrutiny is something that we're supposed to actually dig deep and find out exactly where your costs are coming from. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to do that. So we have not been allowed to do it. And the chair is sat right behind me, and he is fully aware that in scrutiny, these things were not discussed. They were not given the time of day. But he is here again, sits in front of you and says, scrutiny approved. They did not. I certainly did not.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Councillor Curran is saying, that people have to pay for using, but at the same time, I see the council is spending £150,000 on Hounslow Heath car park. Now, if I recall, 8 years ago, I met Councillor Smart, and I raised this question to her back then, and also when she was mayor, that the car park is used by one community. So why are we paying £150,000 to resurface this car park? And this car park was just resurfaced about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I raised this with the then councillor Mukesh Malhotra. And now we're back to that again. It's in one of the I think in Schedule E. And this has been used by one community. And I think I discussed this with Councillor Vikram when we were in meeting last month. And he was going to raise this with Councillor Karan and the member, Councillor Samia Chowdhury. And I hope that this should be, the people who use the car park should be charged. And if I recall, having conversation with Councillor Smart and then Councillor Colin Ella, that the members of the Friends of Hounslow Heath would be able to use the car park free of charge, but the rest would have to pay. But since then, 8 years have passed, but nothing's happened. And we're spending money, £150,000. Why are we doing that? Now, coming back to fees and charges, I'd just like to raise.
Come on then.
Sorry, what?
No, I mean, murmurings. Carry on with your fees and charges now.
Yeah.
After your
fees and
ward issue,
charges.
thanks.
I note that the adults, children and adult services, the charges are for 15 minutes is £4.50, and the new charges per hour, 16 to 18 pounds. That's still 18 pounds. But on the 31st of January this year, I received a notification to say that the charges are going up to £18.60. I suppose that's to do with the London waiting, but that's fine. But what my main concern is the invoicing. I think the council needs to have a look, and I've raised this already, is when the invoices are sent out, it seems to be more than what the actual hours spent by the care company. And if this is the case, which is in my case, I know that perfectly well, I received 2 invoices and both were wrong, and they're still pending. And I think the council really needs to have a red flag when the amount of hours charged are greater than what are supposed to be supplied. And this should raise a red flag before the invoice is sent out to a client. Furthermore, I mean, as you probably have read my blog on Chiswick W4, if you haven't, regarding the link line, we pay for it, yet when you ring the link line, which I had to, and it says on there, in the event of an accident or emergency, as I'm reading from here, please call this number. Now, when you call the number, you don't expect to be told that you can't use this service at the weekend because it's only available on Monday to Friday, which is wrong. I was hospitalized and I had to ring up to say that somebody should
Point of
go
order,
there.
Miss Mayor. Can we get on to fees and charges? This is like if there's casework that needs to be sorted, happy to deal with that outside of the meeting.
Okay. Councillor Gill, come on then. Continue with your with the fees and charges discussion, please.
All I want to say is, this needs to be looked at, and please sort it out. Thank you.
There you go. Thanks. Councillor Khalid Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a chair of the scrutiny committee, we had, although we are not the same at all, but we had enough opportunity to go through the deep dive, all the item which was raised, and Councillor Mashisho, rightly, he raised his concern in the committee, but they were looked into the Overview Scrutiny Committee in detail. And I think those concerns were addressed during the committee. And also, whatever the concern was raised there, they were addressed and they were looked into it. And the Overview Scrutiny Committee recommended what's the appropriate. And I think the majority of the concern was looked into it, and they were happy for the recommendation what they have made.
All right. Thank you very much. That's enlightening. Councillor Biddle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to return to the point of boot camps, and I was going to start slightly differently. I was going to first of all congratulate you on apparently not putting on weight during your time as mayor when being offered. Okay, in which case you're disguising it well. I think it's very tough if hospitality is a daily or near daily occurrence. I was also going to say the same about the 2 predecessors as mayor, who I've known as mayor since I was elected, who also appeared to avoid piling on the pounds. Their willpower and your willpower is to be admired. So too is the willpower of the Cabinet Member for Waste, who has impressively and significantly reduced his waste. I hope. I
We should
hope.
all cycle up those cars and stop our congestion, get Chiswick High Road moving again.
And recycle.
That's down to the Hammersmith Bridge, and I walk a lot. I hope Councillor Curran, leader of the council, won't mind if I say that he and I both need to pay attention to our approaches to hospitality, and both our waistlines could do with some attention.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, I've lost a stone since Christmas.
Oh, well done, you.
I know I need to lose a lot more.
I think you've transferred it to me. I would like to get on to boot camps.
Enough already. Yeah, get on with the pie.
I would like to get back to boot camps because some of what you say is acceptable and some of it isn't. This is a new charge and it is going to be very expensive and perhaps unaffordable by either of us and by many of our residents. The budget proposes to impose new charges on personal trainers and boot camp trainers using our parks. This is nothing less than a tax on health. Get healthy, stay healthy, and we will tax you. Meanwhile, residents who are overweight and under-exercised, but perhaps that's not you either, are being encouraged to change their lifestyles to avoid diabetes and heart disease, both of which have an immense impact on the NHS. Personal trainers and boot camps help people to achieve that. Encouragement to get and stay healthy should be applauded, not penalised. These charges are not only a tax on health, they're also a tax on being entrepreneurial. The NHS needs us to be fitter. An entrepreneur spots a gap in the market, sets up a means to help people achieve what the NHS wants us to achieve. Residents are grateful, the trainer makes a living, our parks are joyfully used. The council comes along, considers it wrong, forgets the purpose to increase health and decrease costs to the NHS and levies a charge. It brings to life the concept of taxing anything that moves, even if, as it might be in our case, the movement is rather lumbering, Councillor Curran. So the charges proposed for permits to make and keep us healthy range from £150 for winter to £4,680 a year. Who did you consult on the principle of taxing people who are contributing to the health of our residents? Or have you simply tossed some numbers in the air and seen how they fall? As one Chiswick resident put it on seeing the budget, the fees, he actually called them penalties, which is what they are staggering. He knows mothers and personal trainers who organise these types of sessions. He can't imagine them being able to afford it. What then? Having a personal trainer going to boot camps are part of today's society for those who can afford it. These charges will inevitably be passed on to the people taking part. They will deter people from taking part. The purpose, fitter, healthier, will be lost. The NHS will continue to be under unnecessary pressure from people who could be healthier. The council goes laughing all the way to the bank. I urge you to withdraw these charges and to encourage our residents to get and stay healthy by making it easier for personal trainers to lead residents, including us, to a healthier way of living and to make a living.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Dennison.
I wonder sometimes whether members of the Conservative group actually talk to each other. There's the leader of their group explaining that we're charging too much, and yet the mover of this amendment was saying maybe we're not charging enough. So pays your money and you takes your choice, don't we? Okay, to ask Councillor McGregor, I am somewhat staggered that you do not know what full charging is. These are precisely the same definitions, precisely the same terms that have been in operation in this council, certainly since I was elected in 2010, and I certainly know they were there when you were the lead member for finance.
Indeed they were.
So it seems a little bit bizarre
Indeed they were.
that you are not aware of what they actually mean. The other interesting thing, of course, is that these definitions, so we've already heard from the current chair of scrutiny, these definitions went to the previous scrutiny meetings under the last administration. And my dear friend and colleague, John Chatt, was rigorous in his analysis of what these terms actually meant. And as I recall, Councillor Todd was present to hear that discussion about it, because Councillor Chatt was keen to understand exactly upon what basis these charges were being levied. And actually, if Councillor McGregor had attended, he'd be well aware of what those are. So I think you've very much missed the point about what this thing is all about. And of course, if you really didn't know what full cost was actually about, Councillor McGregor, at any time this last year, in fact, any time since you've been elected as a councillor, you could have asked, and someone would have been very polite and kind to actually tell you what that definition is. There was no need, has never been a need, for us to delay the imposition of these charges at cost to the taxpayer, which is why this amendment is utter tosh. And as for this huge hike in terms of fees and charges income that you made reference to, the £5 million, where on earth are we going to get that from? Again, if you had bothered to read the paperwork, Councillor McGregor, you might have noticed that the £47.1 million we're expecting in fees and charges this next year is actually less than what we actually got in fees and charges in 2018-2019. So this is not a huge increase. It is something that we believe can be reasonably borne by our residents and that is required for the running of our services.
Yeah, Councillor Dennison, round of applause. How about that? Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm aware that Councillor Malik is allowed a right of reply, and what I have is more in terms of a question for him. In the scrutiny.
He's not. He's spoken.
He does have if I'm addressing something to him, he has a right to reply, as I understand it. Anyway, my question is this. Councillor Malik believes these have all been gone into. I'd like to ask him who was actually in the room when these were gone through. You can look at some of these charges and say, well, that looks reasonable to me. But were the lead members in the room? I mean, this covers pretty much most of the departments that we have in the council. Were the lead members in the room, and were the directors, assistant directors responsible, and was there any accounting support from those departments? When I think we do all know what full cost means, but you need to know what work has been done and when that was last done. And that's the point that my colleague Councillor McGregor is making, that a great many of these charges that are historic have not been looked at, and that we do have new charges. And I think there is some sense in looking at these new charges and see where things arise from. Anyway, I'm sorry if Councillor Malik is unable to reply to this tonight, but that's really the nature of my question is, what's the basis on which scrutiny was reviewing these charges?
Yeah, bravo.
Okay, look, soon as Councillor Malik, you have asked, Councillor Malik, just one, answer yes or no to those questions. Were lead members in the at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee when this was discussed? Yes or no?
Yes. They were.
Okay, good. Second question: were chief officers there to give advice? Yes or no? Okay, so the Director of Finance was there. Okay, thanks. Does that answer your questions there, Councillor Hearn?
Point of order.
Hang on. Does that answer your question, Councillor Hearn?
No, because the central finance doesn't actually create and do the testing.
Okay. Okay. What's your point of order, Councillor Mashisa?
Point of order. I'm trying to agree with Councillor Malik as much as possible because he's a great man. I like him a lot. But
what's your point of order?
I was not. These figures were not gone through tooth and nail, or even in any recollection of mine that would warrant confirming that we signed them through, which is what. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that point of order.
Member was not there.
Okay, thank you. Noted. It'll be minuted that you said that, but I think at Overview and Scrutiny Committee, any scrutiny panel or committee, one does have the opportunity to ask the questions and get the response. If a question wasn't asked, perhaps for all 150 amendments here. That's something different, and no doubt we all do have, or even I have, access to chief officers and similar. But let's just note that, if that's okay, and move on to Councillor Dunn, please.
Just to say, I'd like to encourage Joanna and Steve and anyone else who wants to take part in the free boot camps that this council provides in our parks. Which I attended several last summer, and the free and make use of the free gym equipment that this council provides in our parks across the borough. Councillor Curran's been very clear that these fees and charges apply to those who are making money from our parks. So not that we want to discourage that, but we just want to have a fair pricing structure for that. But where there are charities and partners that we work with ourselves and services that the council is able to provide to encourage people in the borough, and in particular those who can't afford to attend private classes, then I think we should all be doing our best to encourage and promote those classes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nisar Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Generally, if we object to anything or if we have issue with anything, we make a suggestions. Okay? What I'm failing to see that we have in these amendments almost 153 different parts of the amendments. Now, if we were to not charge every single one of them, there should have been a suggestion or a budget from the opposition.
Read the motion.
And I think he doesn't make any suggestions. It's all amendments. I think it's been a long time I've seen any documents to actually tell us how should we run the borough as far as financial situation is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bidoff, I can tell you work in PR because I've never heard so much spin in all my life.
Now we're hearing more.
Telling us that this is a tax on health when it is in fact a tax on private companies making profit. And that is the very basis of progressive taxation, the very cornerstone of our society. What do Conservatives like taxing but dementia and poor people having a spare bedroom?
Councillor Bath, please. Was it?
Oh, same me.
Well, I thought, yeah, that's your name.
Councillor Barr, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Bath.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to say, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am too very disappointed that I haven't seen a budget. I was really looking forward to, but maybe next time. What I'd like to say is, and Councillor McGregor, I think you've been a councillor probably for quite a long time. I don't know how many years.
Since Adam was a boy.
So I can't accept the amendment because you have had, as an experienced councillor, you know a lot about fees and charges and you know they exist. You've had ample opportunity to go through scrutiny, and I don't want to open that debate again. In scrutiny, I know you have, you prioritise what you want to look at, but you as members have opportunity to do the deep dive exercises if you want to, and to ask questions, which clearly you haven't. So again, I think, as the leader has said, it is poor show. And I also want to highlight, Catherine Dunn mentioned the free gyms that we have in our parks. We have, in fact, if you go to the website, I'll bring it up here. If you encourage residents to use the free gyms, the outdoor gyms that we have, you can actually get them to obtain, what is it? Free, sorry, I'll get there in a minute. Well, basically, they can earn points to spend wherever they want to. So if they want to spend it on the boot camp, they can. Thanks.
Or kittens. That's it, isn't it? That's it. Okay, Councillor Rajawat, you have it's your prerogative to sum up on an opposition amendment. So, if you wish.
With pleasure, Mr. Mayor. Everything that this side of the chamber has said, I absolutely agree with, and and that side as well, of course. My colleagues behind as well. Not you, Ron. Not you. But let's just put this into perspective here. Firstly, Councillor Moshisho, I think it's deeply offensive that you would insult the chair of Overview and Scrutiny, who's given you ample amount of time to scrutinise the budget and the MTFS and every single financial document. Your lack of organisation to actually ask the question doesn't make it his problem during the meeting. That is entirely your problem. And I'll let all members into a little secret. Councillor McGregor and the Conservative group have had a finance manager assigned to them, unfettered access throughout this entire process, pretty much from the MTFS onwards, I believe, maybe slightly later than that. And now they choose to raise questions about fees and charges. This is nothing more than nothing from them. So we won't be accepting this amendment. It's a waste of our time. I'm grateful to all of those that have spoken, but you've got to do better than this. You've really got to do better than this. And nothing that will come after this will do any better. Sorry.
Okay, so we move on to the first vote of the evening, and I'll pass over to Niall Ball, the Chief Executive, London Borough of Hounslow, to read out, and you'll see what you either support the amendment, or you're either for the amendment, or you're against the amendment when your name is called out. Thank you very much. Over to you, Niall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is the first vote for the evening on Amendment 1 to the substantive motion. I'll call out each member's name, and if members can indicate whether they're for the amendment, against it, or wish to abstain. And this will take a bit of time, so please bear with me. So I'll start now, if I may. Councillor Aksat Ahmed.
Against.
Councillor Jabida Akhundzada.
Against.
Councillor Candice Atherton.
Against.
Councillor Harleen Hartmell here.
Against.
Councillor Lily Bath. Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
For.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
Against.
Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Councillor Komal Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Banda Chopra.
Against.
Councillor Mel Collins.
Against.
Councillor Steve Curran.
Against.
Councillor Theo Dennison.
Against.
Councillor Michael Dennis.
For.
Councillor Sukhbir Dalwal.
Against.
Councillor Poonam Dillon. Councillor Catherine Dunn. Councillor Richard Eason.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foote.
Against.
Councillor Adriana George.
Against.
Councillor Gabriella Giles. Councillor Ranjit Gill.
For.
Councillor Asma Garwal. Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Garwal. Just checking, Councillor Pritam Garwal is not here at the moment. Councillor Pin. Oh, sorry. There he is. So, pardon me, Councillor Garwal. Councillor Pritam Garwal. And Councillor Puneet Garwal isn't here. Councillor Shivra Garwal.
Against.
Councillor Vikram Garwal.
Against.
Councillor Vishnu Gurung.
Against.
Councillor Sam Hearn.
For.
Councillor Kamaljit Kaur. Councillor Afsal Kiani. Not yet. No. Yeah. Not yet. Councillor Hina Kiani.
All right.
Councillor Hina Kayani. Not here either. Councillor Gurmal Lal.
Against.
Councillor Guy Lambert.
Against.
Councillor Tony Lukey.
Against.
Councillor Kulik Malek. Councillor Nisa Malek.
Against.
Councillor Amrit Mann. Councillor Gerald McGregor. Councillor Shada Mahabran. Councillor Hina Mir, Councillor Alan Mitchell, Councillor Ron Mishiso, Councillor Surinder Purwal,
Against.
Councillor Shantanu Rajwat, Councillor Danish Saeed, Councillor Steve Sampson, Councillor Bara Sarai, Councillor Salman Shaheen, Councillor Jagdish Sharma, Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu, Councillor Corinna Smart, Councillor Karen Smith, Councillor Sumra,
Against.
Councillor Kuldeep Sak, Councillor John Todd, and Councillor Mohammed Amir.
Against.
That amendment is lost.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on to Amendment 2, Mel Collins, what's the score from Kenilworth Road? Loftus Road, was it? Okay, what about Loftus Road? Exactly. Okay. Thank you. We move on. What's that? Oh, really? Oh, blimey. Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, I asked. Right, Amendment 2. We now move on to the second proposed amendment. It's in your papers here. I'll invite Councillor McGregor as proposer to speak to introduce this amendment. Is this your 5 minutes or your 10 minutes?
No, 5 minutes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Saving my 10 minutes for the main.
Yeah, all right. Okay, good. Okay, off you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proposed amendment, I better read it because obviously people didn't understand the previous one. The council directs that the budget should contain further provision for adult and child social care, and for SEN, stands for Special Education Needs, and for EHCP, Education and Healthcare Plan for Children, combined of 960,000 drawn from the contingency reserve, which is shown in Schedule A. Provision will be as follows: 400,000 allocated for the provision of further staff in the Education Department to ensure that backlogs of cases can be brought up to date and dealt with in greater expedition. And I'm sure we've all, as councillors, come across people who come to our surgeries and talk about problems they're having getting satisfaction for these children who need special education and special healthcare plans. The remaining sum involves putting in place a finance manager and some embedded social workers, returning them to the system we had some years ago, looking at the major hospitals around West London and providing support so that we don't have to wait for discharge. And to return the system of embedded social work by placing Hounslow offices in the major hospitals used by Hounslow residents and children to ensure greater liaison with particular reference to discharge from treatment and the provision of care. And again, within that sum, the finance manager's duty will be to ensure that no cost shunt takes place. In other words, people are discharged without a care plan that involves clinical or medical support, which is paid for by the NHS, not by us. So we need to have that made clear. And that's what we call a cost shunt. And looking at any other health provision in the relationship between ourselves and those health providers. Now, earlier we had people complaining we haven't got a budget and complaining that we had access to a finance manager. And the trouble was the finance manager was jolly good. He told us what was going on with the budget. And it's pitiful. Budget you've got is pitiful. It's very difficult to actually create a result from that pitiful state. Now, one of the situations we have here is we are overspending the direct education grant. And there's no balance left. Well, there should be a balance every year, according to the department. There's no balance left to meet education, healthcare planning. SENs are late. I have here a marvelous piece of work by a parent. I'm going to show this to Tom Bruce after the debate. I need to talk to him about this. It's a timeline of the attempts to support a child, an adopted child with some difficulties. I won't go into the detail, but just take it as read, some difficulties. And every year since 2009, there's been some problem with the healthcare plan or the SEN. And officers have got it into their head that the child was actually expelled for bad behavior. It's never happened. But somewhere there's a file that says this child was expelled for bad behavior and therefore it's difficult to place, which means the child is targeted by healthcare professionals as difficult to place. It makes it impossible for the parents to deal with that placement issue. So we have a whole range of issues. Now, people say you haven't got an alternative budget. There's no point. We need to look at detail and specifics, because that's the only way we're going to get back to these plans we need to support our valuable and vulnerable children. With regard to the healthcare issue, the reason I've put in place the position where we can have a finance manager is to make sure that Hounslow residents don't have to pay the same tax twice. If we go for the education element of this, we will be paying tax twice. We get a grant from the government and we already pay for some part of education. We're going to pay more to provide relief to our families, to get those officers in who can actually then generate and process the necessary cases quickly. The next problem with that, of course, is that we then find ourselves on the rack, on the hook, because the cost of these places is huge, as you will have seen from the fees and charges, which we identified for you. The cost of these places is absolutely huge, but the children need absolutely solid care. So we are putting this amendment forward. It is fully costed and it is covered. We'll take it out of the contingencies. You've got a lot of money in the contingencies. Look at Appendix A, you'll find it there. Corporate funds, and we'll then take it as read that you will not be listening to this, and we'll take it as read that there'll be no relief for our children who are in need, and there'll be no relief for people leaving hospital. There'll be no relief for bed blockers. I believe my friend Mr. Masucci, I'll take an intervention here.
Councillor McGregor, would you agree that the council needs to do everything in its power to support young, vulnerable young children and adult social care?
The answer is yes. We hear the words, we don't see the action. And on that point, I rest and ask the council to accept the motion to enable us to put more resource in the right places to try and deal with this problem. Now, I will hope to hear from Councillor Bruce. I'm sure I will. And he will tell us what he's hoping to do and how he hopes to clear this issue. But then I have this. Oh, by the way, this could lead to the council losing £50,000 in costs.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Biddle.
I second and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Councillor Rajawat, do you accept this amendment?
No, I don't.
All right. Okay, so now I invite members to debate the proposed amendment. I've got Councillor Bruce as indicated.
Thank you very much. Two borough councils in a row where I'm perplexed. I was going to start by saying I believe that this amendment had the best of intentions, but after listening to that, I actually don't believe that it does. At the root of this, SEN deals with some of the most vulnerable young people in our borough. We all know that, and those are the people that we as councillors are here to serve. We do a great job in this council. However, of course, there are challenges, including funding. Demand, like other areas of the council, continues to rise. But we are not alone in the country of having to deal with this. Poor government funding for councils hits everyone, and it's hit everyone across the country pretty equally. Councillor Rajawat mentioned the problems in the high needs block within the DSG. This again is a national issue, and that again is what poor government funding is forcing upon us. It is so poor that the DfE are now allowing councils to hold a deficit reserve. I hope you're amazed as I am at that. That said, in terms of what was written down, I do appreciate what they're trying to say. We are already putting in additional money, one-off money, to SEN to support a range of things across the department. I've already talked to Councillor McGregor about this and explained what we're trying to do and why we're doing it. More importantly, which the Conservative group also know, is that there is an SEN review underway. This is a root and branch review which has already resulted in changes to the home to school transport policy and the closure, sad closure, admittedly, but the right closure of 2 SEN centres in our schools. The review continues at a pace and will include work with Hounslow Education Partnership, Schools Forum, head teachers, governors, parents, carers, young people, and the council. So I don't agree with this amendment, as it is surely best to wait for the review to be completed and all the findings to be known, and a plan of action, proper plan of action, not just a number thrown on a page, proper plan of action put in place.
Thank you. Councillor Atherton.
Thank you. I'm looking at this motion, and you, as you presented it, I think you mentioned about delayed transfers of care. You talked about bed blocking, so I think that is what you're talking about here. We are working really hard on that, and we actually are doing really well. We call them detox. We're doing really well in that area. We have got social workers in our hospitals, but we are moving towards integrated care, which is where we will make the most efficiencies by working closely. The only shunting of costs that is taking place is because national government is for 10 years now been ignoring the adult social care crisis. They've finally found some money for the NHS, but there's no way we can improve the health of our population, and we can reduce early deaths. We can work around dementia and work around mental health. Adult social care also works with adults with learning difficulties. There's no way that we can solve and improve these health issues if we only look at acute hospital and we're not looking at adult social care. So the cost shunting is the government shunting the costs to the local authorities and not giving any adequate provision around finance to do that. And they've also now got something in place. So we have delayed transfer of care, and we're doing really well on that and making sure that we're reducing our bed blocking, and Hounslow doing well. But now we have something called discharge to assess, which has been put on by national government. So now the hospitals can discharge patients, and then they have to be assessed in the community. So exactly what you raised, then they're coming out and that assess them. We're doing really well pushing back on that. And if we're not entitled to our services and to care that comes and is paid for by the council, then we do push back on that. But initially, they are coming out of hospital and they become our responsibility, and that is a directive of government. So that is where the cost shunting is taking place.
Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind Councillor Bruce of his own budget report. I wrote to your director of Mung Thong Pung here, asking about his projected budgets and funding. And I'll quote from what his response says, and basically what he said appears in the budget report. The new social grant allocation for Hounslow is 5.8 million for 2021, with 4.1 million received in the social grant for this is intended to be used by local authorities to meet the cost of rising demand for adults and children's social care and sustain support for vulnerable residents. But he then goes on to say, to address your suggestion as underfunding, this precept and the new social care grant would help the council fund the significant financial pressures in services, which include a projected overspends on children's social care of 4 million and 1.6 on the cost of home to school transport. So whilst I accept there has been pressure, I think something the suggestion in your budget report is this funding more than ameliorates the pressure you allude to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm shocked, really, of this proposal, the amendment. So we've had this government and the previous governments and the shoddy coalition back in 2010, and they've cut money year on year out of budgets, council's budgets. They've decimated social care, and they were very generous a few years ago. So I know what would be a good wheeze. We'll allow councils to put up council tax with a 2%, maximum 2% precept to bail out social care for adults and children. And then, of course, residents are feeling that burden. And because of the crisis in funding since 2010, we've had no option, but at the appropriate time, even though we don't want to, and we are a low taxation council, we put up the council tax. So it's ironic that Councillor McGregor would put forward this amendment when his government since 2010 has been responsible for the cuts to social service for children and adults. And on top of that, there's some waffle about what we should do in hospitals and etc. We've got one of the best integrated care systems in Northwest London. Yeah. In Northwest London. We're the envy of some other authorities in Northwest London and CCGs. And we work very closely, as you know, with our local CCG. They're here in the building, and they were there at the old Civic Centre. And we're well aware of the need to improve services, improve discharge so people aren't delayed and blocking beds. I mean, even to the point where we've had a housing officer in the delayed discharge team for a couple of years now. So they work directly with the hospital social workers, with our social workers, care staff in both the health service and social services to make sure that people have got a good, safe home to come to avoid staying in hospital. And that's got to be a good thing. But this is just chucked together. And again, you know, this should have been worked through in discussion with Councillor Bruce, in discussions with Councillor Radrat, and we could have seriously considered it. But again, it's just an amendment. We haven't seen a substantive alternative budget since 2010 from the opposition. And after all this time, and all Councillor McGregor's experience, and I know he's passionate about the residents of Hounslow, but really this isn't good enough. It really isn't good enough. The other thing to remember that with regard to council tax, it's a one-off payment. We can't go above the 2% on the precept. And it's the very people that we want to support are penalised through council tax, except for the very vulnerable in this council, because Councillor Radrat has reminded us once again, we've got one of the most generous and supportive council tax support scheme in London and the country. So I'm very pleased about that. But it is rich that his government, since 2010, when we've lost in excess of £150 million out of our budgets, then suggests we should take money from reserves, make a one-off payment. What are we going to do next year? What are we going to do about the year after that? And the year after that? Where does the money come from then? We've got to transform those services, work with our colleagues in acute care and community care, and get the service right. And late in the day, the new Prime Minister says he's going to build, what is it? How many hospitals? Can't remember now. 40 new ones. Well, there's plans maybe, but there aren't going to be 40 new hospitals in the next 5 years. There may be 6 if we're lucky. And even some of those plans, if you look at St Helier, are up against a brick wall already. So I don't think we'll take lectures from this lot about how we run social care in our borough. We've got very good partners that work together with us, and we will do everything we can to ensure we provide the best services. And I think it's a bit rich to pick up an envelope and say there's a case here that may cost the council. You know, why is it waiting to the budget meeting? What have you done with that since you got that concern raised with you? Why wait to the budget meeting? It's just showboating. It's disgraceful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether it's just me, but I actually had problems understanding this amendment. I'm really sorry. I mean, apart from the waffle, I did have problems understanding. In terms of special educational needs and funding, I'm very passionate about SCN provision. I have, and council, you know I am, and you are, and I have a child who has SCN needs, so I've been through the process, and I totally am aware of the absolute funding crisis that we have across the country. It is a national crisis, and it's a service that has not been funded properly for a long time. Now, if you were very serious about SEN provision, then you would be lobbying central government to make sure that, that this is a service that is properly funded so that we can help vulnerable children and young people. But you are not, and therefore, why would you, as the leader quite rightly said, why would we be using reserves? Because when you've used them, they're finished. What you really need is a properly fully funded system, and I support that. But obviously, that's not what you are saying in your amendment. In terms of the hospital work, as Councillor Atherton quite rightly said, we do have a hospital social work service. I think it's 7 days a week, and that was put in, I think, when I was cabinet member for adult, and that is a good example of our integrated working. And in fact, just recently, we've put in outreach workers in the hospital for people who might be homeless when they come out. So I'm sorry, I can't support your amendment because I don't actually know what you're trying to say. Sorry.
Right, that it? Good. Councillor Dennison, go on then.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I know it disappoints you. It's just I was just wishing to give some additional succor to Lily, really. You know, if this is what it takes with 5 minutes, just imagine what it's going to be like when he's got 10. Now, as you know, I have the highest regard for our finance team, and I'm slightly concerned, Clive, if a member of your team was to describe this budget as pitiful, given the hard work that your team put into it. But I suspect, Councillor McGregor, you're misunderstanding this as you were misunderstanding earlier, that when he was saying pitiful, he wasn't talking about our budget, he was talking about yours. Because if there is anything that is pitiful, it is raiding contingencies as a smokescreen for no answers to the issues that we have to address. Raiding the contingencies in 2 out of 3 of your amendments. You know, and the question is, again, I'm not going to ask you because clearly you don't know, what is a contingency for? That's a rhetorical question. What is a contingency for? A contingency is to mitigate risk. That is what a contingency is in the budget for. And there is nothing more likely to incur risk than using a one-off contingency for recurrent expenditure, which is what you are proposing. It is a recipe for deficit, it is a recipe for debt, it is a recipe for failure. Now, what I really did like about what Councillor McGregor had to say is what really sums up what conservatism is really all about. Returning to a bygone age. And to be honest, I'm as fond of the Victorians as any man. So I do. I'd be more than happy for us to go back to some aspects of the Victorian era, the building of the canals, of the railways and like, all great endeavours. But to be honest, your version of Victoriana is what Councillor Salman Shaheen was actually mentioning early on. A form of social care, a form of dealing with people which brings in universal credit and impoverishes thousands of our citizens. It also brings in the bedroom tax, which penalises particularly and including those who have a disabled spouse who requires additional assistance and space or have a wish to see their family visit them. These are the Victorian values that you stand for, and they are appalling. And, if we are going to go back to these Victorian times, maybe we're also, God forbid, going back to those glorious times when Councillor McGregor was in charge of financing, those days when we could rely on the private sector to be brought in for the cost of £5.4 million. £5.4 million, Councillor McGregor. What were they paid for? They were paid by our glorious Conservative group to tell them how to save money. That's what they stand for.
See, I can't comment on that. I'm sitting here. All right, that it? Good. Councillor Rajawat, your turn. to sum up on this before we take the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I mean, you know, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Atherton, Councillor Dennison, again, colleagues on this side have articulated the arguments as to why we won't be supporting this amendment. But actually, you know, jest aside for a second, if I were a user of adult social care, or someone that I loved was using adult social care, or I had a child who was accessing SEN services at the moment, actually, I think I'd be quite insulted by this amendment. And the reason I'd be quite insulted by it is because our friends opposite have been asleep for 3 budgets. Where was your care and compassion 3 budgets ago when this was still a problem? I dare say you won't put an amendment next year to deal with this same problem, but the problem will still be there. So this is nothing more than your press release tomorrow morning. And that is the biggest shame. And that's why I've always said that the group opposite really don't care about users of adult social care. They really don't care about SEN, because if they did, we would have had year on year on year of proposals, and we don't. We get a budget amendment in the 3rd year that really doesn't address it, solves the problem for 1 year and creates it for perpetual for every year thereafter. So that's why we won't be supporting it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so you know the drill. Take it away, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the vote for Amendment 2. I will call each member in turn, and please indicate whether you're for amendment, against it, or you wish to abstain. So I'll start with Councillor Aksar Ahmed, Councillor Javed Azada. Against. Councillor Candice Atherton.
Against.
Councillor Harleen Atwell here. Councillor Lily Bath. Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
For.
Councillor Tom Bruce. Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Councillor Kamal Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Banda Chopra.
Against.
Councillor Mel Collins. Councillor Steve Curran.
Against.
Councillor Theo Dennison. Councillor Michael Dennis.
For.
Councillor Sukhbir Dalwal. Councillor Poonam Dillon. Councillor Catherine Dunn. Councillor Richard Eason.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foote. Councillor Adriana George.
Against.
Councillor Gabriella Giles.
For.
Councillor Ranjit Gill.
For.
Councillor Ajma Garwal. Councillor Pritam Garwal. Councillor Shivraj Garwal. Councillor Vikram Garwal. Councillor Bishnu Gurung. Councillor Sam Hearn. Councillor Kamaljit Kaur. Yeah. Councillor Gurmal Lal. Councillor Guy Lambert. Councillor Tony Lukey. Councillor Kulik Malik. Councillor Anissa Malik. Councillor Anrit Mann. Councillor Gerald McGregor. Councillor Shahida Mebran. Councillor Hina Mir. Councillor Alan Mitchell. Councillor Ron Mashiso. Councillor Surinder Parwal. Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. Councillor Danish Sheed. Councillor Sue Sampson. Councillor Bara Sai. Councillor Salman Shaheen. Councillor Jagdish Sharma.
Against.
Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu. Councillor Corina Smart. Councillor Karen Smith. Councillor Soham Sumra.
Against.
Councillor Kuldeep Tak. Councillor John Todd. And Councillor Mohammed Amir. Thank you. And the amendment is lost.
Okay, here we go. Eyes down. Amendment 3. We move to the 3rd proposed amendment, also in your supplementary agenda. Councillor Tack to move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council wishes to draw the attention of the members to a duplication in the waste management charges for bulk waste as per the schedule of charges identified here in the overleaf paper. and therefore withdraw the more costly fee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McGregor.
Thank you very much. I understand that this has been brought to the attention of the lead member, and I understand that it's a question of reference. And this is the point about the earlier motion. We are inexact in our procedures. We allow slippage in our procedures. If you look at the original document I proposed in the First Amendment, you'll see that there were lots of yellow blobs, and these are areas where it was actually virtually impossible to understand what you're trying to achieve. Now, I understand the missing words were landlords and residents. I believe that's what I've been told, so I presume that's the case. So one charge is for residents and one charge is for landlords. And the assumption, of course, is that the waste is different from each direction. And the waste has some sort of magic properties. There seems to be an awful lot of magic about your budget. When you're posing questions to us and you're not giving us the answers yourselves. And the issue here with this particular proposition is that when we pick these things up, you pretend it's not important, but it is important. Because we are setting a tax on our population by charging a fee or charging a service charge. So the important thing here is not necessarily the nature of this specific charge, but the lack of appreciation of the detail that makes the council work. You have to get it right, because otherwise you get challenged. The other issue that we have here in this particular motion, of course, goes back to the question of the overall fees and charges. When we've heard that we should have gone to scrutiny, we should have heard that John Chatt did a jolly good job, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what it is. So when we look at scrutiny, you have to understand that since 2010, the scrutiny team has been reduced in number. It's now called scrutiny and policy or some such thing. And the actual quality and integrity of the scrutiny team is not to be gainsaid. I still believe that they are doing the best they can, but the resources have been cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Because the leadership of this council doesn't understand what they need to look at to actually make the appropriate cost savings. Now, in this particular amendment, I'm not going to draw attention to the question of an alternative budget. I'll be talking about the approach when we meet the main motion. But it's quite clear that we've had, okay, you talk about waffle and scoff, but actually, when you get people who write for the Morning Star and they compare themselves to someone writing a public relations release, well, that's not clever. We don't want political extremism in this borough council. It's not clever. We don't need it, and we don't need to be told. Now, Councillor Curran is very keen on telling us he don't need no lessons from you Tories. Well, you're right. You don't need a lesson. You need a complete education.
Councillor Rajawat, do you accept this amendment?
My education is complete no, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. So let's debate this amendment. See Lambert, get in there quick, mate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A rather pointless amendment. It seems that the opposition have now bothered to read the single member decision that I remember myself making last year, which makes it clear that £50 is for residents and £70 is for landlords. So it's yet another pointless amendment. Yet another pointless amendment accompanied by a lot of waffle about irrelevant things which have nothing to do with this amendment. So I'm not going to waste any more of the council's time saying that it's a stupid amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Khalid Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was mentioned again, second time with this scrutiny, and I myself, it was mentioned just before about the quality and the resources of scrutiny. If you may remember, in the last ordinary scrutiny committee, Councillor Mashisha, we have given enough time, and all those questions which you raised and all the members, it was addressed and it was looked into deeply. Now, in reference to the quality, I can't recall there's a single question was specific about, for instance, this is the item I'm not happy with, and we would have looked into it and would have addressed that. And there were officers were there, and we could have looked at it. But all those questions, what I can recall is what was, and I'm not happy about fees and charges. What does it mean that? So I would be happy. It would be nice to ask specific question about this is the item I'm not happy about it. We could have looked into it. But in generally not happy, this is not good enough. This is not the quality we are looking for. I think overview and scrutiny has looked into deeply all those concerns were looked into it, and they were addressed appropriately. So please, our overview and scrutiny committee, it was mentioned twice, and I will defend that as a chair of overview and scrutiny, the way in which we have looked into it deeply, all those questions were raised.
I've got Councillor Curran and then Councillor Mashiso.
Oh, God, it's hard, isn't it? So I thought, the first amendment, bit interesting, worth a chat. Second one, not so much. And this one, as Councillor Lambert has said, it's pitiful. So we wasted time on this again. As Councillor Lambert said, it was already dealt with in SMD last year. And again, why wait to the budget meeting to deal with it? Why didn't they deal with this outside of the meeting? They've had plenty of time since the SMD if they were concerned about the fees and charges around bulky waste. And there is an issue around bulky waste, and it does warrant a discussion. But to raise it at Borough Council when we've not even seen once again an alternative budget is pitiful. And it's letting our residents down because some of them, not many of them, but some of them voted for them. And I don't think they're looking after those people at all. They're not representing them because I would have thought, with the support we've given them through the finance team, that they could have put an alternative budget together. And as for Councillor Gregg wants about education, our residents have educated you, and that's why they've elected us since 2010.
Councillor Mashiso.
Thank you. I don't want to dwell too much on overview and scrutiny, Councillor Malik, so I think we'll probably have a discussion afterwards about that to save everyone a bit of time. But just one point on that is to say there are over 150 amendments that we have put forward on fees and charges. We did not discuss more than one fees and charge at overview and scrutiny, and that's been minuted. So that's something we need to discuss. But on the other point, talking of waste management, and Councillor Lambert does a great job because I know he's under a lot of pressure to improve the recycling rates in Hounslow. But on bulks and waste and recycling, when you charge, or when you're not familiar, or when you're not familiar with how much the costs are, and when there's duplication in the language that you provide to residents, this is what leads to fly tipping. Because people who fly tip are the ones who don't understand how much it's going to cost them for the council to come and take things away. And I think that you need to be a little bit clearer on this so that we can actually work together as a council and improve waste and recycling and improve waste management. So this amendment, I fully support Councillor Tack. By the way, his very first inaugural speech, so well done. First to do it. We beat Labour to it, and I fully support his amendment. And I really think that if you're serious about recycling, if you're serious about the climate change emergency, which you've said you are, then this is something you need to look at seriously. And you need to avoid duplications. So well done on fine tooth and comb. And I think there's more to come from you. And you need to watch your waste.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Ajmal-Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say, normally I love these today has been so boring, these amendments. It's unbelievable, nearly nodding off. Councillor McGregor mentioned something about magic in the budget. Well, let me tell you, there is magic in our budget because we care about our residents' quality of life. And we don't just sit here bringing useless amendments. So instead of commending us on a great budget, condemn your government for the cuts. Thank you.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you. So I've been listening to everything with kind of great interest this evening, and I'm just kind of trying to reiterate the point as to why we have brought all of these, as you have said, supposedly minor amendments to the floor today. And the thing is, they're not minor. They do actually have an impact. But it does prove that we have read the budget. We haven't had to produce an alternative one because there are things that are severely lacking, and we have found it within this budget at the moment. It's lacking in consistency and in accountability, and most important, clarity. So if these have been missed by those who have actually put together the budget, then how can we expect our residents to be able to understand it? Or is there an expectation by our administration that by creating a maze of references that nobody will want to read the budget, and I believe that there's quite a few in here who haven't actually done that either, and thereby this allows our leadership to impose further charges on our residents and businesses?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Merban and then Councillor Vikram Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't understand this motion very much because we keep going on about scrutiny and how Councillor Mashisho keeps going on about how he's raised issues in scrutiny. And up to now, nothing has been addressed. Can I ask you, why are you on that panel then? What are you doing there? If your issues are not addressed, what are you doing as part and parcel of scrutiny? I mean, I remember when I was chair, anything that came up was addressed and it was sorted. And no one left it just to be taken to Borough Council. No. When was I there? The year before. And if it wasn't sorted and if they weren't happy, then they would raise it again, and it was made sure that we tried to solve it in the best way possible. I mean, why wait for Borough Council to bring this up? We're going round and round in circles. What are we solving here? Shouldn't it be taken either to the lead member or the scrutiny panel itself? Why are we wasting time here today? I don't understand.
Okay, so that's totally rhetorical. No response is required. Thank you very much, Councillor Merban. Councillor Vikram Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just adjusting the mic. I'm slightly tall, as you can tell. I must say, sitting here today and now standing, I must wonder through that lens over there what our residents watching on YouTube and all around the world are thinking about this Conservative group here, because we were just accused by one of the Conservative councillors that we haven't read the budget. Maybe they haven't read or heard the budget from their government over the last 10 years. A lot of the cuts and a lot of the scrutiny that's coming to us for holding the fort, where they have led this 10-year, a lost decade of austerity, where even this week we heard about life expectancy for the poorest actually going down for the first time in a very long time. Children staying in poverty for longer than 3 years for the first time in a very long time due to the Tories. And we are getting told time and time again, scrutiny wasn't effective. Well, ladies and gentlemen in front of us in the Conservative Party and the Conservative members are on scrutiny panels. And I was chair of a panel last year, and charges were brought up, and members and even the leader of the opposition was there. Were there problems raised? No, but there are today all of a sudden. So I must wonder, what are they doing and what are residents thinking? Instead of commending us for holding the fort, not raising council tax, not letting our residents feel the pressure for so long. No, please. We haven't for so long. We've protected our residents, and unfortunately, they need to read their own government budgets, see the own consequences of their austerity measures on all residents. And I hope people on YouTube are watching this and all the residents around the borough. Thank you.
even as far as Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood. Okay, is that it? Right, yeah, you again, Councillor Rajawat.
I love the sound of my own voice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, not as much as the Mayor, yeah, of course. Firstly, Councillor Tack, congratulations on your first speech. It's just a shame they gave you such a poor amendment to speak on. So, you know, we've heard all the arguments. We're not going to support this amendment because you've had the answer in a single member decision. You just didn't do your research. You weren't consistent in your research. And quite frankly, out of a 200-page budget, if we look at their amendments, there's only one where they're accusing us of not being consistent. I'll take that in a 200-page budget. And even then it wasn't a mistake. So you're barking up the wrong tree here. You really have to do better. I'll say it again and again and again. You have to do better. Bring your A game next year, because this year, this is decidedly below D. You know, this is poor.
Okay, right. Here we go again. Vote on the third amendment. Over to you, Chief Executive.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I prefer amendment number 3. As per the earlier amendment, would members please indicate whether they are for, against, or wish to abstain with the amendment before you, which is amendment 3. And I'll start with the division sheet, starting with Councillor Akhtar Hamid. For, against, or abstain. Councillor Javed Akhazada.
Against.
Councillor Candice Atherton.
Against.
Councillor Harleen Atwell here. Councillor Lily Bath. Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
For.
Councillor Tom Bruce. Where's he gone? Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Councillor Kamal Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
Against.
Councillor Bandna Chopra.
Against.
Councillor Mel Collins. Councillor Steve Curran. Councillor Thea Dennison. Councillor Michael Dennis.
For.
Councillor Sukhbir Dalwal.
Against.
Councillor Poonam Dillon.
Against.
Councillor Catherine Dunn. Councillor Richard Eason. Councillor Richard Foote. Councillor Adriana George.
Against.
Councillor Gabriella Giles.
For.
Councillor Rajit Gill.
For.
Councillor Ajmal Garwal. Councillor Pritam Garwal. Councillor Shivra Garwal. Councillor Vikram Garwal. Councillor Vishnu Gurung. Councillor Sam Hearn. Councillor Hanif, pardon me. Councillor Kamal Jet Kar. Councillor Gumal Lal. Councillor Guy Lambert. Councillor Tony Luki.
Against.
Councillor Kulik Malik. Councillor Nisa Malik.
Against.
Councillor Amrit Mann. Councillor Gerald McGregor. Councillor Shahida Mirban. Councillor Ina Mir. Councillor Alan Mitchell. Councillor Ron Mushiso. Councillor Surinder Parwal. Councillor Shantanu Rajwat. Councillor Danish Saeed. Councillor Sue Sampson. Councillor Bara Sarai. Councillor Salman Shaheen. Councillor Jagdish Sharma.
Against.
Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu. Councillor Corinna Smart. Councillor Karen Smith. Councillor Sohan Sumra.
Against.
Councillor Kuldeep Tak.
For.
Councillor John Todd. And Councillor Mohammed Amir. Thank you. The amendment is lost.
Right, so with no amendments, we move. Oh, welcome back, Councillor Bruce. With no amendments. With no amendments, we'll move to the substantive. On this is found on page 23, agenda item 5. All the details of the recommendations are there, and that's what we'll debate, and that's what we will eventually vote on, unamended.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. When do we need to suspend standing orders?
don't know. Does it go through 10 o'clock? I think we could do it near there. Sometime before 10 o'clock?
Yeah, it's not until before 10.
Well, let's see. Let's see if we can focus. I think in all the meetings I've ever chaired at this council, particularly IBAF, we've never gone beyond standard. We're not gone beyond closing time, all right? We don't want the samosas to get cold, but, you know, if we need to, we shall. Right. Who's going? Who's Councillor Roger? Who's first or Councillor? Who wants to do it? You still got 10 minutes, Councillor Curran. You still got 10 minutes, Councillor McGregor. Who's first?
Put them all together.
It's already been moved by Councillor Rajwa, hasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's seconded. And it's been seconded. Councillor McGregor, go on then.
I'm not quite sure why you didn't put a speaker up to support the budget. I will presume that you have no interest in the budget you're promoting. And therefore, I need to sort of be very careful what I say here, because quite simply, the budget you've created is one full of holes. It's like a Gruyere cheese. Or was it a Cheshire cheese? I'm not quite sure. But the important thing about Swiss cheeses is that the Swiss tend to make money, but nothing happens here in Hounslow. And the important thing about what goes on in the budget is that we've got balances brought forward in the form of overdrafts. We had a medium-term financial strategy dated in November, and we've now finalized that. We've now got a new strategy with £4.2 million worth of savings found, and therefore we've now actually managed to meet the balances requirement at the end of this financial year in hopefully a month's time. That remains to be seen. The issues that we have are quite complicated. I would like very much to go through the budget in terms of the annexes and the appendices, but what I will do is I will ask you to turn to the budget book on page 55. That's a good starting point. Budget book used to be called the Red Book. One of the key things about this is there's no detail. We've just got a series of columns. We've got a series of expenditure headings, but it's extremely difficult to drill down. When I asked the finance support manager who was allocated to us to give me some information about specifics within the budget, he couldn't do so, despite the fact that he's a Hounslow finance manager. He could not give me the specifics to enable us to actually look at volumes, values, incidents, units, and capacities. It just was not possible. Unlike the previous budget book, which we called the Red Book, those of you around for long enough would remember the Red Book. The Red Book was a document that supported the budget. It was not the budget itself, but it was a document that supported the budget. And it was around about 170 pages long, and it gave you detail and analysis of pretty well every heading we have here. So we reduced that to 20 pages between page 55 and 75. And the service summaries give you issues on subjective summaries and expenditures and headings, but they don't give you detail. It's very difficult to drill down into this to find out exactly what's going on. You need to talk to the individual finance managers for each division, and even they are very often enthralled to the management accounting system, which is obviously no longer fit for purpose, because you cannot pull out information without a great deal of investigative work, when in fact, if we had the proper accounting in our management accounting, we'd be able to analyze this straight from the system, albeit with appropriate security. So in this 20 pages, we see we've got the revised budget. I'd like to concentrate on the revised budget because that's revised budget took place in October, and it was called a rebasing exercise. And in this rebasing exercise, a lot of money was tipped into the various divisions because they'd failed to meet budget. So we have a situation where you're glossing over so much. It's not true. The gloss you're putting on this budget is one of unalloyed success while facing difficulties. Sounds good, but it's not a recognition of the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is you don't have enough cabinet members with enough experience to put a control on the costs. You just don't have it. Finance team, and I'll name no names, indicated they get very little steer. They have to look at your manifesto find out what the policy is, because people seem to be unable to turn policy into value and into, therefore, cost control. If you don't have control, you can't benchmark. If you can't benchmark, you can't forecast. If you can't forecast, you can't budget. So you're highly reliant on what we call the incremental budget approach, which means we take the establishment costs from the previous year. We don't really investigate it, despite your pretenses to scrutiny. We don't investigate the budget in any meaningful way because it's incremental. It's taking what you've had already. There's no zero-based budget. When was the last time we had a zero-based budget in this council, where we actually knew what was actually going on within each department? When was that, do you think?
2006, 2010.
Yeah, it's 2006, 2010. There is my muse, Ron Mashisho, Councillor Ron, the muse, the magic muse. And he can always be relied upon to respond, because he actually is, like me, an activist and looks at these things. The problem we have here is those of you who've got an accounting background will know that a good set of accounts has a conversation with you. It can talk to you. A good set of accounts gives you information purely because of the way it's laid out and purely because of the way it gives you an understanding of where the elements are, and you can then pick up the cost structures and so forth. Unfortunately, without the detail, the extra 130 pages to support the budget, but we do not have that capacity to drill down and find out what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I think we've actually ended up with overspends, overdrafts, if you like. Pretty well every budget in the council's got an overspend at some stage. There's no need for it. There's no need for it. The other issue, of course, we haven't touched upon, of course, is the sheer waste of money in this council. Now, if you look at the macroeconomic, the issue here is that very often, in some circumstances where you're delivering a project, 2/5 of all the money subscribed to the project is completely wasted in reiteration or coming back or not going forward. That's a lot of money. There's a case in central government, and you say that you're concerned about central government's austerity. Well, you can bat that around as much as you like. It's not an issue. It's going to be historic very soon. But the important point about it is that at no stage did the government reduce the overall budget between 2010 and today. They've never actually reduced the overall budget in the United Kingdom. They've kept things going. In the most difficult circumstances, when you've got to rescue lightly regulated banks and bung them 70 million. Oh, 70 million, that's the amount of capital you haven't spent since you actually allowed it. It's the same amount as we spent rescuing the Royal. No, I beg your pardon, not quite so. Maybe I'm out by 1,000 factor. Why not? But it's close, good enough. So you've got 70 million of unspent capital projects, and my colleague, Councillor Todd, will give us the benefits of his erudition shortly in looking at the capital strategy, which is, of course, a big feature of this budget. I hope all of you on the other side, particularly the cabinet members, understand pages 142 to pages 149. You are helped by this chart. Great help. I think everyone loves a graph. Here we are. Part of the budget papers. Yeah. And then what have we got? We've got a proposed capital strategy board. Well done. About time. But it's a sign of a lack of protectiveness of the key funding of our council when you have to go that far. You have to do that because you haven't actually delivered on a line-by-line basis. With regard to the Treasury management strategy, well, a commentary would be inappropriate, because given the way you've structured the budget, the Treasury management strategy relies on funding being created by savings going forward, savings on previous years. You're carrying forward overdrafts, in effect, and hoping that at some stage something nice will turn up. Well, you were hoping for a Corbyn government, and you lost that last December. So you can talk about us as Conservatives in this council, but we're proud to fly the flag of conservatism, because we know that that means proper government. And we don't see that here. And yeah, I'm prepared to learn lessons from Councillor Curran, particularly in good manners. And I'm prepared to learn lessons from every member of this council, because as councillors, I respect you all. We all have a tough task. We all got elected, and you deserve my respect, irrespective of the differences we might have. But the important point about it is, when we're trying to get together and you say you want a separate budget, okay, one finance manager Interesting. You think that's enough to deliver a separate budget? How many fees and charges are there in Appendix B? Lots. How many finance managers know the detail? One for every silo. How many do we have to look after us? One. Give me strength. We don't need more because there's no point. The budget is rubbish anyway. So let's not consider that too much. And let me end my peroration with a call.
Councillor McGregor, you have 30 seconds to end your oration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're very kind, and thank you for the warning. I want you to understand that we oppose this budget because we don't think the underframing foundation works. You haven't done enough to keep your costs under control. You're carrying forward potential savings. And the final point I want to raise with you is that Lambton, you talk about the business development plan and the business plan it's got as if it's actually set in stone. Lambton deals with a market. The market may not like Lambton. And therefore the budget won't stand. I rest my case. I'm not going to insult anybody here except perhaps to say you've wasted our time and we've wasted yours. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody else? Do you want to say? Sorry? Well, no, it's not about samosas. It's about, does anybody wish to debate? Yeah, Councillor Hearn.
As long as no one else is.
Start, your point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At last year's budget setting meeting, the Conservative group gave the administration an easy ride. I acknowledge that. Instead of opposing the budget, we abstained. We did this because we had detected a significant change of tone in the budget report. In particular, we noted the comments of the Section 151 officer who stated that, and I'll quote, "It is critical for the future financial sustainability of the council that budget holders deliver services within the budget outlined within this budget report. The current levels of overspend are not sustainable into the midterm, and a process to address this is already underway." With a new lead member for finance and a new chief executive in place, we decided, I will admit against our better judgment, to give the new administration a chance, and not to oppose the 2018-20 budget, but rather to offer advice on how to deliver more rigorous financial control and how to make the forecast savings materialise. The debate, of course, was curtailed. Unfortunately, within weeks, our optimism was dashed. The actual outturn for 2018-19 was not the 552 million of expenditure of the original budget, nor the 575 million of the revised budget, as reported at the last budget setting meeting, but 590 million pounds, an incredible overspend. And what shall we say? Not indicative of an organisation where budget holders deliver services within budgets outlined in the budget report. As the year 2019-20, our current year, progressed, it became increasingly clear that in 2018, that the 2018 budgeted and projected savings would not be met, and that the lead member and officers had given up trying to pretend that either the savings forecast or that the budget itself could be delivered. In October 2018, the Cabinet members were forced to authorise, as we've already heard, £16 million worth of budget rebasing for the future, from the future contingency budget that had only been established a year before. Reality was beginning to dawn on lead members, and the words of the Section 151 officer from the budget setting meeting must have hung ominously in the air. I'll remind you again, the current levels of overspend are not sustainable into the midterm. Yes. Thank you, Councillor.
Just a quote for you, Councillor, is just a question. Yes, a number of services within the council are currently overspending, which we cannot allow. That's Councillor Rudd in 2018.
So, yeah, it's superfluous. Carry on, please, councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the intervention. We now know that the original 2019-20 expenditure budget of 552 million will be overspent by at least 25 million pounds. And this is after the budget rebasing. But who knows what the final outturn for 2019-20 will be. Of course, lead members should know. They should have the latest figures at their fingertips. Perhaps they would like to speak tonight and explain why their departments all failed to meet budget and what they are doing about it. I suspect that, as in previous years, we'll not be hearing much from lead members other than, as we've already heard, the ritual rhetoric about austerity and Tory cuts. It's not us, Gov. We in the Conservative group would very much appreciate an individual apology from each of the lead members and indeed the leader of the council. If they are too embarrassed to give an apology in this forum, we can at least have an assurance from the leader that they will attend scrutiny to answer questions about their individual department overspends and apologise there. I do not think we will be giving the administration the benefit of the doubt again anytime soon. In fact, it's clear that we must oppose the budget because even if we agreed with it, we quite simply have no faith that it can be delivered by the present administration. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's late, but turn off your electronic devices if you've got them on. Councillor Curran, will this be a 5-minute or a 10-minute?
Well, 5, I hope. I'm sure everyone else is.
Okay.
If my comrades could wake up and pay attention, because I was falling. Gerald was incredibly, I think, almost offensive, because I don't think Councillor Hearn meant to be, but they maligned tonight the overview and scrutiny staff. Dr. Paul Probert has done a great job for us, supporting overview and scrutiny and his team, supporting Councillor Malik and his team. And there's nothing in the Constitution that stops the opposition councillors at any time during the year to raise concerns about finance and take it to overview and scrutiny. But they've maligned the staff and they've maligned the committee. And they shouldn't do that. They're better than that, I thought, until tonight. They've also now, Councillor McGregor, maligned the finance team. Now, I think we all respect Clive Palferman immensely. He and his team. It's amazing, isn't it? So a minute ago they were maligning him and his team, and now they're clapping him. It just shows you can't trust them. You can't trust them. I used to say this about the Lib Dems, but these are worse flip-floppers than I've ever seen. It's shocking what they do. Flip-floppers, and that's what they are. That's what they are. And then I respect Sam, and he did a great job when he was leader. And it's very difficult for him now to come in from the back benches, because he's obviously not in tune with what the leadership wants when it's dealing with the budgets. So they've had plenty of time since 2010 to put an alternative budget. And we heard about 2006. Councillor Masuso talked about it. He wasn't even born, was he then? I don't know. But in 2006 to 2010, and it's been mentioned earlier, £5.4 million spent on consultants to tell them how to run the council. And then when it came to the election in 2010, they got hammered. They got hammered because, no, I won't. No, I won't. You can ask as much as you like. I'm not going to. No.
64 million.
So they spent on the money on consultants, and I know some of it was to tell Councillor Thompson what to wear, etc. And one of the things that and I'm very proud of this, that Jacqueline Sharma did when he was leader. The first week he came in, he got rid of that guy. He got rid of those consultants. And that showed real leadership. Real leadership. I dress myself. I know what tie to wear, and it's rather fetching, I think, don't you? So it has got red in it. So we dealt with that, and what we've done is prudent administration. 2010 to 14, 14 to 18, and then 18 up to date. We run this council prudently, and the residents know that. That's because they keep voting for us. They keep voting for us, and they trust us. They trust us with the money. The other thing to remember, that our staff are working in the environment of the worst financial cuts ever inflicted on the public sector, both the health service and local government. No one has ever had to deal with these cuts and then face a surge in demand, absolute surge in demand, and they don't recognise that. They'd rather malign the staff in overview and scrutiny and malign the staff in the finance team. That's not acceptable. To suggest that we're not prudent is not right. And I really, Councillor Vikram Gurwal suggested, and you all scoffed, we are a low taxation council. We are. And in between 2010 and 14, we cut the council tax. And we recognise, and we recognise the problem that was causing to council tax to our residents, but we got to the end of the line there and we had to put it up, and we're criticised now. You've heard them moaning about council tax. Can you tell me what's in common with these councils? It's a quiz. Barnet, Bexley, Bromley, and Wandsworth. What have they all got in common? All Tories. They're all Tories, aren't they? Not many of them, I know. When you compare to the rest of London, don't jump in, Ron. Don't jump in. Read the room. I keep telling you. Don't jump in. And what else have they all got in common? No. Not yet. Not yet. What else have they all got in common? They put the council. They're proposing to put up the council tax exactly the same amount that we're doing, 3.99%. So there's an example of them criticising us, say that we don't manage the budget. We do. We manage the budget as well as those Tory councils, don't we? Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct, isn't it? Because they're charging the same amount of council tax, and even Wandsworth is taking the 2% precept and the 1.99. Wandsworth, which was the flagship Tory borough that kept council tax at zero, almost through the whole of 2010, almost through, I think, to 2018. So we won't take any lessons from these guys. And I can remember meeting after meeting since I became a councillor, where council would go, hold up, there's too much detail. I can't understand what's going on. And then we got to a point, there's not enough detail. There's not enough detail. And we've heard that today. Not enough detail, there's too much detail. The really important thing is they've not put an alternative budget. They've scraped around for a few weeks, made a few inquiries with the finance officer, and then blame us because we put a budget together. I think it's an excellent budget. And I like to put on record, thanking Councillor Rajawat, thanking all of the backbenchers, all of the cabinet who've worked so hard to put this budget together. But more importantly, I want to thank the finance team, the chief exec, all of those officers who do a fantastic job day in, day out on behalf of our residents and businesses. So I will not stand by and let our officers who work so hard on behalf of our residents be maligned like this. It's not acceptable. And more importantly, I would implore all of our residents, if they are watching this, that they think about the opposition and what they haven't done tonight. They may not agree with our budget, but we put a budget forward. It's a prudent budget and it will meet the needs of our residents and businesses. All they've done is put a few sloppy amendments together, not thought through, not costed. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I absolutely support the budget amendment, the budget.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Corrin. Look, I've got Ratterton, Councillor Moshiso, which is your opportunity. Oh, you don't want to do it now. All right. Okay. Good. All right. But you've got the chance to speak if you want. But otherwise, just button it when others are speaking. Please, please. That is a please. Councillor Ratterton, Councillor Todd, and then Councillor Dunn. Thank you. What are you watching, Friends? And then Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor, you're leaving the room, but I was about to address some of your comments. You asked us, what are we hoping for? And you joked about a Corbyn government. I am hoping for a Labour government. I personally hope for it and want for it, but because our nation is desperate for it, we need it, and we need it as soon as possible. Councillor Growell talked about life expectancy stalling, and life expectancy is stalling, and it's going down for our most vulnerable and our most deprived. I'm a Hanworth councillor, and we are the most deprived ward in the borough, so I'm hugely concerned for my residents, and I am hoping for a Labour government. Around life expectancy, I just wanted to read this quote. Since 2010, and this is from the Marmot report, which came out this month. Since 2010, life expectancy in England has stalled. This has not happened since at least 1900. So we're talking about Victorians. If health has stopped improving, it is a sign that society has stopped improving. When a society is flourishing, health tends to flourish. The health of the population is not just a matter of how well the health service is funded and functions, important as that is. Health is closely linked to the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. And inequities in power, money, and resources is what determines health. The slowdown in life expectancy increase cannot, for the most part, be attributed to severe winters. More than 80% of the slowdown between 2011 and 2019 results from influences other than winter-associated mortality. Life expectancy follows a social gradient. The more deprived the area, the shorter the life expectancy. This gradient has become steeper. Inequalities in life expectancy have increased. Among women in the most deprived 10% of areas, life expectancy fell between 2010 to 12 and 2016 to 18. So I am hoping for a Labour government. I'm also hoping for an adult social care green paper, which was promised by Theresa May in 2017 and has been kicked into the long grass, despite the government recognising that we need parity between health and adult social care, health and mental health care. Adult social care doesn't just deal with older people, which is something that people assume. We're talking about adults with learning difficulty. We're talking about adults with mental health. These issues cannot just be pushed back and pushed back. So my hope is that this government, with all their understanding that they have of this issue and all the talk they talk about this issue, is that they actually do something and produce this green paper. That's what I hope for. And thank you for waiting to listen.
Okay, thank you. Look, Councillor Mel Collins, you like doing this. Will you move suspended standing orders? Is that seconded? Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Next, we've got Councillor Todd. Oh, you do want to speak now? Okay, all right. Let Councillor Todd.
Okay, I'm going to open in a very unusual way. I came here the other evening to go to planning training, and there was a disability forum going on downstairs. It was very nice to see the new assistant chief executive. And to me, that forum, and I praise all the people who were there, both cabinet and others, that to me, what is being a councillor is all about, where people come to this building, get advice, guidance, and warmth and love. I thought that was very impressive. But to run an effective council, we've got to be prudent and have a credible budget. I want to go back to July when our chief executive and Councillor Curran and others produced a report, a very good report called Leading Hounslow. And what they said, they wanted a clearer, more straightforward and transparent organisation that makes accountability and responsibility clear. And in the corporate leadership team, they wanted collaboration, leadership and transformation. And in the evidence to the cabinet, Councillor Curran was very frank, and he said it's quite clear the council didn't interact with a large percentage of residents, didn't interact with a large number of residents. So I'm going to jump all around the budget to try and make some points. Budgets are difficult, but the chief executive in his new powerful role with his extended team has set up two bodies. Councillor McGregor mentioned one, the Capital Strategy Board, and also the Hounslow Sponsorship Board. Now, the latter, I'm not quite sure what it does, but they're both charged to review progress and take action and scrutinise to stop overspending. And with respect, I think they've failed. In the report, it talks about green infrastructure. The climate emergency is a key criteria for all of us. And what they say in the report is there's a disjointed approach to developing our green infrastructure, creating a better and cleaner environment for all. Greater corroboration is required. Let's come on to what I call dead money, if you're a prudent budget. The Environment Fund is currently under the control of the leader, and he has made some very useful donations or grants. But the reality is, at the moment, it's got a balance of £463,000. That's unfortunate. That's dead money. The Carbon Offset Fund, which I keep raising at planning, has got £300,000 in it. Not a penny spent yet. The projection from our planning team is that it go up to 800. Now, to me, that's dead money. And what's frustrating, Councillor Curran and colleagues, is sometimes you seem to forget that it takes an awful lot of inquiries to get details. We only get the budget report a fortnight before it comes here. I just want to come on the other aspect, how we measure your performance. We've got a new style of performance monitoring reports. And I love this quote from Petitions. He says, the new criteria of this board affords a richer, more nuanced picture of performance than the simple output figures can provide. Now, if you read that report, whether it's nuanced or not, it certainly doesn't do what it's intended. The chief executive and others have a performance improvement fund, which in your budget is £2 million. I've yet to see any evidence or explanation as to whether that money does go for value for money or does improve performance. The mayor unconsciously made a very significant comment at the outset of this meeting. He said this is one of the most important meetings of the year, and I agree. And I think the format fails. We rely solely on financial data. There's not a contribution from any one of the executives or a statement from them. Why is it I only meet some directors when I go to retirement parties? Why is it that when I go to scrutiny, so I'll listen to you, Steve, when I go to scrutiny, it's only Councillor Rajawat and the finance team. Finance are support and guidance direct. I want to hear from the top team, and I don't, and I find that flawed. I think there should be a statement with the budget showing their yearly objectives and their strengths and weaknesses. Of course, this administration has done well. I wouldn't say that. Children's services are incredible, and I congratulate Councillor Bruce too, and we've participated too. But I've dipped in the expenses again. I was quite shocked to see that it needed £500,000 fund for progressing that Hounslow project. Lambton and all the companies, I mean, Councillor Rajawat always whinges when I raise it. But the reality is, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Rajawat, there's an excess of £60 million have been given to these entities. And we now set up yet another property company.
Sorry, Councillor Todd.
Wow.
You've gone over 5 minutes.
I do apologise.
Yeah. But thank you. More? What, you want more? All right, well, no, you didn't cede the 10 minutes to Councillor Todd, who could argue. Okay, next, thank you very much. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to agree with Councillor Todd that the administration has done well. I think we've done exceptionally well given the circumstances that we're operating with. It's been suggested that cabinet members need to apologise. You'll get no apology from me. We are doing our best in exceedingly difficult financial circumstances. And you're going to say, oh, she's whinging about austerity again. Yeah, I am, because it's real. It's not made up and it's not over. £150 million of cuts to this administration since 2010 is real, and that's having to deal with. So yes, we do overspend sometimes, and yes, we do need to get a control on that. But if you think that's easy, or it's something that is, you know, if you want.
It's a question, Councillor Dunn. Do you commit to deliver your departmental budget this year?
I commit to do my best. And more than happy to attend any scrutiny committee meeting that I'm invited to and discuss things in much greater detail than can be gone into here. I've absolutely no problem with that. But I do find it sickening that you know, we're accused of passing the buck, given everything that we've had to contend with. I won't apologise. I think that you should apologise. Your government should apologise for everything that it is putting the country through. As Candice has raised today, on the very day that the 10-year review of the Marmot report comes out, and we've discovered that life expectancy in this country has stalled, and in some areas is going backwards for the most vulnerable people, for the poorest women. It's an absolute disgrace. That is what we need an apology for. And Sir Michael Marmot was very clear as to the causes. And the cause was austerity, and austerity is not over. And you can talk about levelling up. Well, there's a long way to go to undo the damage that's been done since 2010.
Thank you. We've got, and I've got Councillor Dennison, then Councillor Bruce, Vikram Garwal, Councillor Mashiso, and then Councillor Pritam Garwal. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you're absolutely right, Catherine, to do our best. And I really don't understand, Councillor Hearn, why you would scoff at that, because frankly, we've also seen your best. Neither yourself nor Councillor McGregor could get within 2 decimal points of the actual figures within the budget. So it's not in the least bit surprising why you haven't come up with an alternative to ours. I think the leader was very kind in making a comparison between this council and the Conservative councils. So I'd like to just bring in 2 other comparisons, which I think are also quite useful. I forget sometimes how many new councillors there are who don't remember what we inherited from this shower. You know, so let me tell you what that £5.4 million bought us. £5.4 million of taxpayers' money. What did we get for that? We got the PR expert that Jagdish had to sack. We had blue carpets throughout the Civic Centre. And in addition to that, we had a £2 million investment in the toilets next to the Civic Centre council chamber. So Councillor McGregor would always have somewhere comfortable to run in the middle of a budget debate. And what did our last administration deliver? Well, actually, members of the public can now see what we have delivered. We have delivered a new Civic Centre at no additional cost in council tax to our residents. And now perhaps, and I'm really proud of the fact that our AV team, an absolutely fantastic bunch of people who have served this council and continue to serve this council well, are now the superheroes, can deliver this even better than the BBC can, and sorry, John, even better than perhaps you. But in addition to that, we also delivered 912 homes in Hounslow for our residents. Yeah. So in terms of a comparison between ours and theirs, our last administration was an awful lot better than theirs. And when you councillors want to talk about overspends and overspending and overdrafts, for heaven's sake, watch what your government is getting up to. Just 1 year. Let's just take 1 year. 1 year in the life of a Conservative government. Back in March 2019, the then Chancellor set aside £27 billion, headroom he called it, to cope with the cost of Brexit, which, as some of you may remember, sort of started kicking in at the end of last month. But £27 billion was gone, frittered away within 6 months of his removal from office. And this year alone, the deficit of your Conservative government is going up by £16 billion. That's the extra it's going up, 16 billion, a total of £41 billion this year alone. No wonder we have the highest debt in this country's entire history. And let's also ask, what about the prospects for this glorious new Conservative Prime Minister? Well, to be honest, the Office of Budget Responsibility has already told us that for the next 5 years, the full term of this Conservative government, they will overspend every single year. And even on current projections, they are expecting at the next general election that they will be overspending by £13.5 billion that year and that year alone. What can you do with £13 billion? To be honest, 32 times our entire budget. So when residents look at what you lot have delivered, they will be able to answer the question, what do councillors do over in the civic centre? And the answer is, we run this place to the best of our abilities, and you do nothing.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
Thank you. When thinking about what I was going to say on this report, I look back at some of the previous MTFS reports and budget reports, and I saw a line from Councillor McGregor. I can't remember whether it was October last year or the budget last year, but I think he alluded to it this evening, to do with Liam Byrne. And a decade ago, the apology, the note he left apologising for the fact that there was no more money. Now, the apology that Councillor Hearn wants won't be forthcoming, but I will make the point about Liam Byrne's apology. He was contrite about that, and he apologised because it was foolish and it was wrong, and he said sorry. Now, David Cameron and George Osborne, the architects of austerity, have they apologised yet? What about their disciples, Theresa May and Phil Hammond? Have they apologised yet? The opposition here sigh when austerity is mentioned, every single time. But why have the National Tories been saying austerity is over? Because perhaps finally they have recognised the pain and suffering it causes, as highlighted in the Marmot report today. Clearly, they haven't recognised it enough, or they'd have done something already. Why do these ideological austerity cuts matter? Because they directly affect the ability of councils to meet the growing needs of its residents. And yet, we continue to do this, and this budget shows that to full effect. Councillor Dunn says we've done exceptionally well, and Councillor Todd congratulates staff, and I agree with both of them. I find the amendments that we talked about earlier, and then the speeches from the opposition on the substantive report, interesting. I assume that if we had agreed the amendments, then you would have supported the substantive report. But it's clear from what was said later on that they had no intention of doing that, none whatsoever. So what a complete waste of our time. I am proud of this budget and all the fantastic work we are doing, that we do for our residents in these very challenging times.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Vikram Garewal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to kind of echo a lot of what Councillor Aston said about hoping for a Labour government. I also hope for a Labour government, and I look forward to having one at the next general election. But also one step further, I look forward to having a Labour representative for South West London and in Council Acton. Hopefully we have that, so we get the representation we deserve. So I must say, as someone that served on scrutiny for 2 years, the lead members have always attended when invited, and they've always contributed. And above all, and particularly Councillor Lambert and Councillor Dunn, whilst I was chair of Housing and Environment Scrutiny Panel, listened and also implemented a lot of our recommendations. So scrutiny is working very well, and thank you to Councillor Malik for that. Today, I thought, after the former Conservative Prime Minister, Theresa May, who's probably running through some fields in Maidenhead, she spoke about burning injustice on the doorstep of 10 Downing Street. And I thought today we would hear from the opposition about how the council would address this. But unfortunately, maybe because of that so-called Boris bounce, they're not talking about it anymore, a bounce that not everyone's seen. Instead, we've had props. It was like watching Willy Wonka and the Charlie in the Chocolate Factory with a golden ticket in the envelope, when really Councillor McGregor was sitting on casework. We have not heard anything. We have not heard anything substantive, and that is a real shame for the residents that are represented not just by the Conservative councillors, but also by all of us, because we deserve better and the residents deserve better. So I'd just like to echo and finish off by what our leader said. Councillor Curran, about thank you all the members of staff and all of my colleagues for all the hard work they do, and thank you for this budget.
Councillor Mashiso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to, speaking on the budget, I think that there should be a little bit of humility from cabinet members, cabinet leaders who said in 2018 were instructed by Councillor Rajawat to go away and look at ways to find savings in each department. And I remember you saying that at cabinet, sorry, at here and at cabinet. So, I'll take the quote from Councillor Dunn just now, who admitted to the very fact that, that she is facing challenges in her department to find those savings. That needs to be, yes, she has, she just said it. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. However, when you look at this budget, where is the actual provisions for each department where they've looked for savings? Instead, what have we got? We've got overspend in each department, especially the one that is closer to my heart, which is waste and recycling, where you've come up with a 2 million pounds cash from somewhere, cash boost to tackle potholes, but you can't even agree to Councillor Tuck's amendment about finding some money for services in adult social care and children's services. So, and then the second point is to do with life expectancy, which is something that you've mentioned because it's in the news at the moment and it's current, and I accept that. I am one of those people who is on, if you had to go into, what we'd say, low wages, I'm probably in that bracket. So my life expectancy is probably pretty low at the moment, if you're suggesting your facts to be true. But let me add to that fact in that life expectancy in Portugal is also down. They're not going through the austerity that you're talking about. Life expectancy in Hungary is also gone down. They're not going through their austerity. So life expectancy in more than 4 to 6 European countries I've just looked up on are going through low life expectancy at the moment.
You're in charge, man. You're in charge.
Thank you. To conclude, Mr. Mayor, what I was hoping to see is we've got, sorry? What I was expecting to hear is from Councillor Bajwa, who I respect very much, to say, look, this is the pressures we're facing. This is the budget I'm giving you. And I am still working and pushing my cabinet members, my cabinet colleagues to find savings. Let's make some cuts within our departments to make sure that we work within the budget and stop overspending. It just keeps going up and up and up and up. When is it going to stop?
Councillor Pritam Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Todd, you mentioned about the new way we present our performance report. You come to most of the meeting and you know it's much better than the last one. We used to use the red, green and amber method. In that process, we only used to look at the red ones, red indicators. With this one, we look at every indicator with better narrative and a better action plan for that. And we always look at how much we have done, how well we have done, and is there anybody better off with our action plan? So I think the cabinet is quite happy with it, and it's getting it's improved every time we bring the report in. So that's answer to you. And Mr. Mashisho, there was a report this morning, Sir Michael Marmot, the head of Institute of Health Equity at University College London. And he is also a leading expert with the link between deprivation and health. And what he said is that life expectancy improvements have stalled for the first sustained period in 120 years following a decade of austerity in this country. That's what I want to say.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Garawal. Councillor Giles.
So it's yeah. Okay, right. This evening, what a very interesting evening again. So in 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. I think given by the feedback and everything that we've heard this evening, I am so not surprised to hear that, you know, to actually acknowledge that this fact has actually decreased to 8 seconds, given the fact that we've talked about lack of understanding, not being able to follow what has been said. We've had, I also know that you need to tell somebody something 7 times for them to remember it. I think everybody's been sent the same stuff, and that is why they're repeating it time and time again, such as what is being said through the Marmot report, which was commissioned under Brown. So I think what we have seen with... Was that a comment? So what we have seen is that, you know, I thought we were supposed to be talking about a local government budget. Yes, there are things that have happened at a national level that have affected us. However, we are responsible for managing the budget that we have. We have seen that there have been multiple plans promoted and commissioned during this year. However, what we haven't seen within this budget is actually that the costings of these plans are not included. Some of them are included in capital investment funds and all this kind of stuff. But would it not be prudent that if we were making some great plans that we should be ring fencing the money for it, and that knowing that there are plans coming out such as the SEN plans, would it not be prudent to make sure that we'd set aside money in this budget that we are being asked to review and support, rather than have this budget set and then having to review it again in 9 months due to an overspend? So we were also talking about consultants. Yes, consultants. Let's go back to that. How many consultants have actually contributed on public projects this year? You know, we've had Eunomia in for the Climate Emergency Action Plan. There was also a consultant brought in for our unsuccessful bid for the Borough of Culture. It's, you know, supposedly we bring in consultants to save money and ensure that what is planned will be implemented and done in a clear and transparent manner, and not to put generic or documents based on general knowledge, not local knowledge and data, to reinforce points that and even fail to promote the beauty and the benefits of the richness and diversity of the culture of the borough which we live in, and which we are supposedly, which I for one am very proud to represent. So, you know, I've got loads of notes here, but what I'm finding here is that there is a cultural lack of cultural acceptance of mediocrity and lack of accountability. That lack of accountability is clear. Time and time again, we have also heard that our numbers are not reported back to on budgets from the members, and that the work is actually done by officers who very duly deserve our recognition and respect, and they really deserve the credit. So to go back to saying that everything tonight has been a waste of time is also, I think, quite, yeah, well, to use the words of my colleagues, insulting, because unless we had had this debate, unless we had had the opportunity to bring our concerns into this public forum, I don't think we would have even had to, we wouldn't have had the recourse to, I don't want to use this word, but scrutinize or at least look into the detail in this manner and engage in a debate which should be more focused on what is being delivered locally for local people, by local people. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Moshiso mentions waste and recycling. We will be below budget this year. We will be within budget and somewhat below, despite paying for a little bit of money for consultants, a little bit of money which has mostly come from other sources outside of the council, because we're pretty good at attracting other people to pay for the consultancy around the improvements that we make. So money from the LGA, money from lottery funds, etc. Our recycling rate is going up. It's going up slowly. Every time a recycling rate goes up a bit, it saves us a bit of money. It's so yeah, I can assure you we are on a good path, and we've and there's absolutely nothing to apologise for in the way that we do waste and recycling, and you're going to see a lot of more progress over the next couple of months, including, you'll have seen, we're just launching. This is a joint venture between me and Councillor Don, the environmental champions. We want them in every ward. We want them. You all should have a card. We want people to work with us, to take responsibility for their areas. We will support them, and we'll make this place an even better place to live. So tonight has been a shocking missed opportunity, actually. The opposition party have revealed that they don't have the capacity, or they can't be bothered to engage with the detail of the budget. They've come up with a lot of reheated moans and whines about how we run this council. Nothing specific, no proposals, just complaints, and it's really disappointing. Thank you.
Remember, Councillor Moshiso, you had a chance to speak on each amendment and on this. So last one, Councillor Rajma Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know I don't speak, and twice in one night is too much, I know. But it's just a reminder that the budget is also set on our ongoing commitment to the London living wage, and we are so very proud of that. There's a long list I could go through of the things we are proud of, but you know what, that'll take too long. But I'm just going to say we are proud of everything we do through our budget and in our borough and for the residents. So may I just say to the opposition, instead of just talk, take action next year, put your heads together, do some hard work, show the residents you care, and put forward an alternative budget. And we'll even let you bring the red book.
Yeah, all right. Or the Little Red School Book, if you remember that one. Taught me a lot. Right, Councillor Shantanu Rajawat, sum up if you dare, and then we'll go to the vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't say too much. I just remind there are lots of new members in the audience, and some that have been around for longer than I have, but certainly since 2010, the theme going forward has always been cuts to our service, cuts to our budget, and we've always coped with that, and that's not going to change as long as this government is in power. What they call levelling up is just trying to pander to those that lent them their votes up in the north. They don't care about London, and in fact, I dare say once the fair funding review comes through, you'll see that we will be worse off as a result of our successes in this borough collecting taxes and the hard work of our businesses who do pay their business rates going forward. So we will carry on doing the hard work. Unfortunately, the only word that comes to mind when I look at the opposition is how mediocre they are. And you can carry on being mediocre. You can put up an alternative budget. Don't bother next year. It doesn't matter, because actually dealing with and looking after the vulnerable in our society is what we are doing behind you as well, whilst you soundbite and say very little. So disappointed, yes. Expected, probably. We'll just carry on doing the hard work. You can just, deplete yourselves. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
At last, right. Chief Executive, please. We're going to move to the vote.
Thank you,
You
Mr. Mayor.
first.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the same drill, members. So again, this is for the substantive motion before you this evening, which is the council's budget for this coming financial year. I'm going to call out each individual member in turn, and please indicate where you're for the substantive motions before you, against it, or you wish to abstain. I'll recommend it, yeah. The recommendations within all of the recommendations at once. So all of the recommendations that you have within the agenda this evening. So, Councillor Aksa Ahmed. Councillor Javed Akhundzada.
Agreed.
Councillor Candice Atherton.
For.
Councillor Harleen Atwell here. Councillor Lily Barth. Councillor Joanna Bidoff.
Against.
Councillor Tom Bruce. Councillor Samia Chowdhury. Councillor Kamal Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Unsa Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Bandana Chopra.
For.
Councillor Mel Collins.
Very much for.
Councillor Steve Curran.
For.
Councillor Thea Dennison. Councillor Michael Dennis.
Against.
Councillor Sukhbir Dalwal. Councillor Poonam Dillon. Councillor Catherine Dunn. Councillor Richard Eason. Councillor Richard Foote. Councillor Adriana George.
For.
Councillor Gabriella Giles.
Against.
Councillor Ranjit Gill.
Against.
Councillor Ajmer Gerwal. Councillor Pritam Gerwal. Councillor Shivraj Gerwal. Councillor Vikram Gerwal. Councillor Bishnu Gurung. Councillor Sam Hearn.
Against, I don't like fairy tales.
Councillor Kamaljit Kaur. Councillor Hanif Khan. Councillor Gurmal Lal. Councillor Guy Lambert.
For.
Councillor Tony Luki.
For.
Councillor Khalik Malik. Councillor Nisa Malik. Councillor Amrit Man. Councillor Gerald McGregor.
Against.
Councillor Shaheed Meherban. Councillor Hina Mir. Councillor Alan Mitchell. Councillor Ron Mishiso.
Against.
Councillor Surinder Parwal. Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. Councillor Danish Reed. Councillor Sue Sampson. Councillor Baraj Sarai. Councillor Salman Shaheen. Councillor Jagdish Sharma. Councillor Ragwinder Sidhu. Councillor Corinna Smart. Councillor Karen Smith. Councillor Sohan Sumra.
For.
Councillor Kuldeep Katak. Councillor John Todd. And Councillor Mohammed Umair. And all of the recommendations are passed, and the substantive motion before you as is agreed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Noel. Right, next item, agenda item 6, calendar of formal committee dates. This has been consulted with with the leaders of both groups. Can I just ask somebody to move it and second it, and everyone's at it tonight. So moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Biddulph even. Let's do it that way. And sorry, Councillor Curran. Agreed? Agreed. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Unity complete at last. Agenda item 7, appointments to committees and other bodies. It's a standing item on our agenda. Have we got any updates on this? No? Okay, so note that we haven't. Agenda item 8, decisions taken under urgency arrangements. None. Good. Okay. Any other matters that the mayor considers urgent? No. And then date of the next meeting. Next meeting is Tuesday, the 31st of March, 7:30. Be there or don't be there, but be there. Okay, thank you very much. And oh yeah, attendance book.
Really important tonight.
Absolutely important tonight. And there's often people don't sign it, or some people don't sign it. They come back 3 days later. No, you're here. Sign it tonight. Thank you very much. And may the sandwiches be with you.
Standing.
Right.